Chapter 1485. It recognized her as its master? Hearing these words, almost everyone present lost their composure. What did you say? The heavenly square cauldron has recognized you? A man who looked to be in his 30s couldn't help but blurt out. Chu Luiyue nodded. Doesn't the heavenly square cauldron recognize its master every time it appears? Under normal circumstances, treasures like the heavenly square cauldron would find their own owners. If one could gain its recognition, he or she would naturally become its master. If not, no matter how hard one tried, it would be in vain. Everyone was speechless. They were so focused on finding the heavenly square cauldron that they had forgotten about this. Recognized its master. It had recognized its master. Why were they still working so hard? Wait, you said that you obtained the heavenly square cauldron a few years ago. Do you have any evidence? Another person asked suspiciously. Who knows if you found this treasure in the mysterious canyon? Chu Luiyue laughed. Why would I lie about this? To be honest, the heavenly square cauldron is the main reason why I can contract with 2 divine beasts. If you don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. Everyone was stunned. They almost forgot that Shangguan Yu did contract with 2 divine beasts. One was a crimson gold heavenly phoenix and the other was a 3-eyed legendary eagle. Moreover, they were the eagle lords. At first, they found it strange as well. These 2 divine beasts shouldn't contract with the same person at the same time. If she had the heavenly square cauldron, it would make sense. It was a sacred artifact after all. Then, many people looked at each other and didn't know where to start. At this moment, Jean D finally calmed down and asked while panting. Since the heavenly square cauldron has been with you for a long time, you must have known from the beginning that the news about the eldritch northern region was fake. Everyone's hearts trembled. Chu Luiyue nodded calmly. That's right. Even the elders of the academy couldn't sit still after hearing her words. This girl knew it all along? Then so at that time, I planned to go with everyone from the academy to see what was going on. At this point, there was no need to hide many things anymore. Chu Luiyue decided to lay his cards on the table. It's a pity that I fell sick at the last minute and stayed in the academy. I couldn't go with them. Fortunately, something happened in the northern region of the untainted land, so I had a second chance to go there. And that time I did go. The elders who traveled with me in the academy can attest to this. Elder Huafeng quickly nodded. Not bad, not bad. At that time, I didn't agree, but this girl was very insistent, so I took her with me. At that time, he only thought that she was young and impetuous and curious. Who would have thought that there were so many twists and turns in her story? Chu Luiyue smiled gratefully at Elder Huafeng. Elder Huafeng shook his head and quickly turned his head away, grabbing the armrest beside him. This was too similar. He rubbed the space between his eyebrows and kept reminding himself. 2 people. There were 2 of them. Chu Luiyue didn't notice the conflict in Elder Huafeng's heart. She looked at the crowd with an open mind. At that time, I wanted to go to the northern region of the untainted land and investigate before making a decision. However, I didn't expect what happened after that. The man in his 30s who couldn't hold back his impulse to speak at the beginning couldn't help but shout. You didn't expect it? Do you think you can send us away so easily with just a few words? Shangguan Yu, do you know that if you had said so earlier, so many people wouldn't have died? Chu Luiyue's expression was cold, and her gaze was like a knife. Do you mean that you want me to be responsible for the deaths of those people? At the very least, you have to bear half of the responsibility, right? The other party was obviously more agitated. If you had said so earlier, we wouldn't have ended up like this. Heh! Chu Luiyue suddenly laughed. Forgive me for not agreeing with your words. Her gaze swept across everyone like a sharp sword that had been tempered by ice. It pierced straight to the bottom of their hearts. You went to the northern region of the untainted land just to snatch the supreme treasure. This matter doesn't seem to have anything to do with me, right? What did their lives have to do with her? Besides, even if I had said so at that time, would you have believed me? Her clear and indifferent rhetorical question left those people speechless. They indeed wouldn't believe the words of an ordinary student of Lingxiao College. Moreover, it was related to the heavenly square cauldron. Such a supreme treasure in the hands of a teenager. Just thinking about it made them feel that it was a fantasy. Why would anyone listen to her? Chu Liwei tucked the stray hair on her cheek behind her ear, shrugged and chuckled. Everyone should know the principle of alerting the enemy better than I do, right? Did they want her to put herself in danger for some irrelevant people? Even they wouldn't do that themselves. From the beginning to the end, the only people I wanted to save were the people of Lingxiao College. The lives of others have nothing to do with me. Her words were loud and clear. It sounded so resolute, but it was understandable. Everyone was speechless for a moment. Suddenly, someone spoke in a cold voice. You said that you have nothing to do with the Black Demon Cave and that the Heavenly Square Cauldron had recognized you as its master a few years ago. How could it be so coincidental that among so many people, only you successfully entered the mysterious area in the canyon? Shangguan Yu, do you really not have any secrets that you can't tell others? Chu Liwei looked in the direction of the voice. It was a man who looked about 40 years old. His face was ordinary and his eyes were cold. Just as Chu Liwei was about to speak, she suddenly heard loud laughter from the distant horizon. The laughter was as loud as thunder. She is a descendant of the Shangguan clan. Naturally, only she can enter my territory. This voice was vast and ethereal, but it was incomparably clear when it entered their ears. Everyone was shocked and turned to look in unison. Chu Liwei's heart also skipped a beat. She looked in the direction of the voice. A tall and burly figure was rapidly approaching from the sky. He was dressed in a long black robe, and he walked 1,000 miles in a single step. Today I am here. I want to see who dares to bully her. Impressive pressure. Astonishing state of mind. Digression, tomorrow, 12 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1486. A Venerable God Expert. Elder Bo Yen stood up abruptly and looked at the person who had just arrived. The other party's aura was tyrannical and oppressive. He was definitely an expert among experts. He turned his gaze and looked at Chu Liwei. Chu, who is that? That man said, descendant of the Shangguan family. Wasn't he referring to Shangguan Yu? Didn't they say that this girl was an outsider? How did she have such a powerful helper? Many people pricked up their ears. Chu Liwei looked at the middle-aged man who was striding over from the horizon. Her heart was strong and intense as it kept beating. Bang bang, bang bang. Great ancestor, she muttered softly. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and unconcealable joy. Rong Xiu sensed her emotional fluctuations. His gaze turned slightly and a hint of a smile flashed across his eyes. I didn't expect this person to come so quickly. In the blink of an eye, Taizu's figure was already in front of her. His robes fluttered in the wind. He walked step by step in front of Chu Liwei and looked at her with a smile. Chu Liwei looked at him in a daze. For a moment, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Taizu's figure and appearance hadn't changed much. It was just that the translucent soul in the past had now become a corporeal body. His brows and expression were so familiar and intimate. Taizu bent down slightly and looked straight at Chu Liwei. It's only been a while since we last met. Don't you recognize me? Chu Liwei was still in a daze. Taizu? She really didn't expect that the person who appeared would be Taizu. Back in the northern region of the primordial desolate land, she vaguely guessed that Taizu should have been there. Later on, she also knew that it should be Taizu's tomb. There, she also thought that Taizu might be able to come back to life. But she never expected that it would actually be true. Furthermore, Taizu's strength seemed to be extremely powerful. Taizu looked at Chu Liwei, who was rarely at a loss, and could not help but laugh. He reached out his big hand and rubbed her head. Was this girl really that stupid? Wasn't she happy that Taizu was here? Everyone was shocked. Taizu! Is this man a Taizu from Shangguan Yu? However, it seemed that he had never heard of an expert with the surname Shangguan in the Divine Ruins world. If there was no way they wouldn't know. Many people looked at each other, but it was obvious that they did not know much about this middle-aged man who had suddenly appeared. However, his appearance caused the crowd to feel a bit of fear. Not only did Shanghai Yu have the support of Lingxiao College and Yuntian Tower, but they also had a god-level master. Moreover, judging from his aura, he could practically crush most of the people present. If this person was really a Taizu from Shangguan Yu, then they were connected by blood and would definitely protect each other to the end. That would be even more troublesome. Taizu patted her head lightly again and said word by word, "Don't worry. With Taizu here today, no one will be able to bully you." Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a lump in her throat as she looked at Taizu's kind and doting smile. She had always been tough and never admitted defeat. Even when she was surrounded by so many people and was being pressured step by step, she still did not show any signs of weakness. Because she knew that she could not. At a time like this, if she showed any signs of weakness, these people would become even more aggressive. Therefore, she had to be tough. However, at this moment, the great ancestor's faint words suddenly and easily pierced through her barrier. In an instant, she felt wronged, sad, longing, and happy. Countless complicated emotions surged in his heart. Taizu's heart clenched when he saw that her eyes were red. Alright. It's all Taizu's fault. We came too late. You has been wronged, right? He wanted to help Chu Luiyue wipe the tears in her eyes, but he didn't know what to do. He was at a loss. He had been all-powerful for several years. In terms of fighting and killing, he was the best at it. However, his daughter was crying. He really didn't know what to do. Therefore, he could only stand there and worry. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh out loud. She reached out and tugged at his sleeve. "Taizu, don't worry. I'm just too happy to see you." Taizu saw that she was smiling again. Her eyes were bright and bright. Only then did he feel relieved. Chu Luiyue sized him up from head to toe. She was still a little confused. "How did you come out?" This question was tactful. In fact, Taizu was only a soul back then, and it wasn't complete. Chu Luiyue had always thought that only by helping Taizu reconstruct his body and finding the remaining incomplete soul could she completely revive Taizu. But now, the great ancestor gently knocked on her forehead and smiled. "Lass, have you forgotten that that place is our territory?" Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Their territory? Was he talking about Taizu's graveyard? Suddenly, a white light flashed through her mind. If the great ancestor appeared like this, didn't it prove that his remaining soul was originally buried in the tomb, as well as... Her gaze immediately fell on Taizu's body. There were a few shallow scars on the great ancestor's face and hands. They seemed to be old injuries. If it was a reconstructed body, there naturally wouldn't be such scars. This was Taizu's original body? Could it be that what was sealed in the graveyard was Taizu's body from 1,000 years ago? As if seeing through her thoughts, Taizu blinked. Chu Luiyue instantly understood and swallowed the words that were at the tip of her tongue. However, her heart was still surging with waves and couldn't calm down for a long time. Let's talk about these family matters in detail later. "Taizu, I'll help you solve these small problems first," Taizu said with a smile, then turned around and looked at everyone present. Finally, his gaze fixed on the man in his 40s who had questioned Chu Luiyue just now. The smile on his face faded a lot, and his gaze was like a knife that scraped across the man's body, as if he wanted to directly use a knife to kill the man. Sensing the faint pain in his body, the man was a little scared and his eyes unconsciously avoided looking at Taizu. Taizu suddenly asked, "Just now, were you the one who forced our Yue?" His voice was no longer as gentle as when he spoke to Chu Luiyue. It was as cold as frost. Every word seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 caddies as it came crashing down heavily. The man's heart trembled. From the moment this person appeared, he knew that this person was not to be trifled with. "I was just asking about some things. I didn't mean to force her. Everyone is here and can testify for me." When Taizu heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched without a smile. "Is that so?" Cold sweat broke out on the man's back. He had seen a lot of big scenes. If the other party wasn't too strong, he wouldn't be like this. Of course it's true. The reason why I asked that was to give her a chance to clear her name. Bang! Before he could finish his sentence, Taizu suddenly raised his hand. A bluish-black force suddenly flew out. The man's body was immediately sent flying and then fell heavily to the ground. Taizu sneered. Who do you think you are? How dare you interrogate you? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1487. The surroundings instantly became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stupefied by this sudden scene. He attacked. He attacked just like that. Wasn't he too direct? This man was also from a first-rate family. Although he was a little desolate now and couldn't be compared to the Yuntian Tower and the Meteor Sect, he still had the reputation of a first-rate family. Everyone more or less gave him some face. Who knew that this man who suddenly appeared would actually start a fight without a word? You. The man who was beaten was obviously stunned. He coughed a few times and spat out a few broken teeth. They mixed with the dark red blood and looked very miserable. Master! When the few people who followed the man saw this scene, they hurriedly rushed over and helped him up. Master, are you all right? Yi Lingran couldn't wait to kick these blind people to death. Did he look like he was fine? But now, if these people didn't stand by the side to support him, he was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to stand properly. That attack just now came too suddenly and caught him off guard. And it was extremely strong. It was extremely ruthless. Half of his face was numb now. Every part of his body seemed to have been ruthlessly crushed by something. It was extremely painful. Every time he breathed, there was a piercing pain in his chest and abdomen. His bones were probably broken and his internal organs were ruptured. He pointed at Taizu with a trembling hand. However, when he met that pair of cold and indifferent eyes, his heart couldn't help but tremble. He curled his finger and retracted it. However, the anger on his face was still obvious. You launched a sneak attack without a word. Isn't that too much? Taizu simply laughed out loud. What? Sneak attack? Of course it's a sneak attack. The man panted heavily. His face was red and white. Everyone was fine at first. You suddenly attacked. Naturally, it's considered a sneak attack. Sir, even if Shengguan Yu is your family and you want to protect him, you can't do this. You're really going too far. Taizu narrowed his eyes and snorted. When this sovereign made his move, everyone present clearly saw it. I was standing right in front of you. You couldn't even see that. Are you blind? Yi Lingren never would have thought that not only was this person's strength formidable, his skin was also as thick as a city wall. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his heart filled with hatred. Being beaten to such a state in front of so many people, he had completely lost all his face. There are so many people here. Everyone has been talking nicely since the beginning. No one dared to make a move. And you, that's your business. What does it have to do with me? Taizu interrupted him impatiently, then raised his eyebrows and looked around. His gaze was as cold as a knife. It's true that you didn't directly take action against you, but which one of you didn't bully her? You are all from first-rate families and clans. No matter how you look at it, you are all people with reputations. But, in the end, you actually joined hands to interrogate a teenage girl. Even if you don't feel ashamed, I feel ashamed for you. This sentence successfully caused the expressions of many people present to change. However, he couldn't say anything to refute. Taizu coldly glanced at Yi Lingran. If you don't have the strength, then don't come out and make a fuss. How shameful! Yi Lingran's chest tightened. His vision turned black, and he almost fainted on the ground. How dare you be so arrogant here? He said these words with a strong appearance but a weak heart. No matter what the other party's identity was, his strength was obvious. If he made a move without saying anything again, Taizu sneered. You don't have the right to ask me this question. Yi Lingran swallowed a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and his whole body trembled. Taizu didn't care. He turned his head and looked to the other side. Are you from the Golden Wing sect? Naturally, he was asking Jean D. Jean D's heart suddenly jumped when he was suddenly called out. He opened his mouth and felt a little weak. Yes, that's right, Just now, Yi Lingran was beaten up like this by this man. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. It was really terrifying. Now, this person was facing him again. It was impossible to say that he wasn't nervous. What do you want to do? Jianghu clenched his fists. Taizu tilted his head and pondered for a moment. Then, he turned around and asked Chu Liwei, last time in the northern region of the primordial desolate land, this thing has been making things difficult for you, right? Although he was still asleep at that time, he could vaguely feel what had happened inside and outside the canyon. Therefore, he remembered Jianghu and he had a deep impression of him. Hearing Taizu's words, Jianghu suddenly felt that something was wrong. Could it be that this person had been targeting him since the northern region of the primordial desolate land? Then, it's him. Chu Liwei nodded slightly, and then the corners of his mouth curved slightly. Senior Jianghu has always been very concerned about my affairs. Jianghu was shocked. Shangguanyu, what nonsense are you talking about? Wasn't he deliberately making enemies for him? I'm not talking nonsense. Chu Liwei looked innocent. From the Scarlet Cloud Sword to the Heavenly Square Cauldron, haven't you, or the Golden Wing sect, been very active in participating? Participating? I'm afraid you're just making trouble. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly as he glanced at her. This girl became bold again when she saw Taizu. She was getting more and more skilled at tricking people. I was just, come here. Jianghu wanted to defend himself, but before he could say anything, he heard the man ask him to go over. He swallowed hard. If you have something to say, just say it. He wouldn't go over. Wouldn't that be courting death? Just now, when he attacked Yi Lingran, all the people from the Golden Wing sect added together were probably no match for him. Then why would he go up and look for trouble? Taizu's expression faded a little, and his voice also turned cold. I said to ask you to come over. Didn't you hear me? Every word was full of oppression. As if a heavy hammer had hit his heart, Jianghu only felt uncomfortable. He gritted his teeth. Actually, everyone just doesn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Haven't the previous misunderstandings already been resolved? Taizu was impatient to listen to his nonsense. He suddenly raised his hand. His fingers clenched. Swish. Jianghu only felt a strong force attack him. The next moment, his body flew forward uncontrollably. The biting cold wind was like a knife, cutting across his face. Before he could react, his neck suddenly felt cold. Then he tightened his grip. Ugh. Jianghu let out a short cry of pain, and then he couldn't say anything. Taizu clamped his neck with one hand and asked coldly, "Do you think I'm as stupid as you?" Jianghu wanted to speak, but he couldn't spit out a word. His face quickly turned red, and the veins on his forehead bulged. Only his body was struggling desperately. Unfortunately, Taizu was as steady as a rock, and his efforts were in vain. Taizu held him with one hand and looked around at the same time. Today, all of you listen carefully. All the inheritances in the canyon in the northern part of the primitive world belong to the Shangguan clan. If anyone wants to compete with you, they will end up like him. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1488. The crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. The great ancestor casually threw Jianghu's body and she fell to the ground softly. His eyes were bulging, his face was bruised, and his head was tilted to one side in a strange posture. There were a few bloodstains on his neck, and the dark red blood seemed to be about to burst out from under his skin. His eyes were unfocused, his expression was stagnant, and his breath was gone. He was obviously dead. The air in the huge square suddenly seemed to freeze. Everyone was shocked on the spot. What happened just now? This man actually killed Jianghu directly? The remaining people of the Golden Wing sect panicked when they saw this scene. Second Master! They wanted to rush over, but the corpse was right next to Taizu. They were full of fear and did not dare to approach. So they could only stand in the distance and watch anxiously and fearfully. One of them finally mustered up his courage and shouted, "Do you know who this is? This is the only brother of our Golden Wing sect's sect master. Our sect master will not let today's matter go. What a coincidence. Taizu patted his hands lightly, as if he felt that his hands were stained with something dirty, and said with a faint smile, "It just so happens that I also feel that killing him alone is not enough." Everyone, listen to that. Was this something a human would say? Not only did he kill one, but he also felt that it was not enough? Could it be that he wanted to completely destroy the Golden Wing sect? As soon as these words came out, the faces of those followers turned pale as well. Taizu looked at them and smiled. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. After all, someone has to go back and report the death." Moreover, he felt that he would lose face if he personally killed these people. Everyone, Chu Liwei was in awe of Taizu and silently gave him a thumbs up in his heart. Rong Xiu suddenly came over and lowered his voice. "So your temperament is inherited from your clan. Ordinary people really couldn't learn this ability to anger people to death without paying for it." His voice was low and pleasant, and there was a hint of a smile in it. Mixed with the scorching hot breath, it scattered on her slender neck, causing her to feel numb. She turned around and glared at him angrily. But now that she saw Taizu, her heart was filled with joy. Even this glance was exceptionally bright and dazzling. Ripples of light rippled, shaking people's hearts. Rong Xiu glanced at her delicate red earlobes and chuckled. "I like it very much." After he finished speaking, he was satisfied to see a touch of red spread to his porcelain-like cheeks. Only then did the man step back in satisfaction. His face was upright and his eyes were sharp. He was like a gentleman, incomparably handsome. It was as if he hadn't said those words. Chu Liwei snorted. "With Taizu around, let's see if he can still be impudent." She retracted her gaze and glanced at Jin Di's corpse. The Golden Wing sect had gone too far. During this period of time, they had provoked her quite a few times. However, she didn't expect that before she could counterattack, Taizu would make a move. Moreover, it was so simple and crude. Needless to say, awesome. "Looks like you're really brave and insightful. You've made up your mind to completely break off relations with the Golden Wing sect?" Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd. The one who spoke was the man in his 30s who had questioned Chu Liwei before. Compared to the other old foxes on the scene, he seemed to be a lot more impulsive. Could it be ignorant and fearless? At this time, he was frowning, and there was a bit of cold ridicule in his eyes. Obviously, he didn't think that Taizu alone could provoke the entire Golden Wing sect. Taizu glanced at him and suddenly laughed. "You should ask the Golden Wing sect about this. Their ancestors didn't dare to fall out with me. But when it came to them, they were very happy." Digression, this was a February that couldn't sleep until 3 o'clock, 6:00, clocked mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1489. The surrounding crowd fell silent. There was too much information in this sentence, and ordinary people couldn't react in time. Even Chu Liwei was shocked and looked at Taizu in surprise. From what Taizu said, he had interacted with the people of the Golden Wing sect in the past. And the other party was very respectful and careful of him? Was it true? To be able to make the ancestors of the Golden Wing sect so afraid, how strong was Taizu back then? Her heart was pounding, but when she thought of the 9 canyons and several dragon skeletons in the north of the primordial world, she felt that it might not be impossible. The people on the other side were obviously frightened by Taizu's words. The man who spoke was quite confident, but when he saw Taizu's reaction, he immediately wavered. Who are you? There was no such person in the world of divine ruins, right? Even if he pushed it forward, there didn't seem to be anyone. The other party was indeed powerful. If he didn't have any background, he wouldn't dare to say this in front of so many people. Taizu put one hand behind his back and said calmly, "My real name is Shengguan Jing. However, you might be more familiar with my other name, Mu Tianjing." Mu Tianjing? "I think I've heard this name before," someone in the crowd muttered softly. "I think I've heard this name before too. I just can't remember it at the moment." Mu Tianjing? Mu Tianjing. Many people frowned as they tried to recall. Chu Liwei turned her head and glanced at Rong Xiu. She had never heard of the name Taizu. She didn't know if Rong Xiu knew anything about it. As if seeing through her thoughts, Rong Xiu smiled and nodded. Chu Liwei widened her eyes slightly, and then became even more curious. Taizu, Mu Tanjing, Mu Zun? Yao Bin murmured. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind. He looked at Taizu in shock and bewilderment. You're Mu Zun? You're still alive? He asked this question very carefully and cautiously. Many people looked over curiously. Mu Zun? What did he mean? Wait. Rumor had it that 1,000 years ago, an equipment refinement venerable had appeared out of nowhere in the divine ruins world. He was peerlessly powerful, and he had even challenged 7 equipment refinement venerables without losing. Could it be? Shuraier seemed to have suddenly thought of something. She widened her eyes in shock and looked at Taizu in disbelief. After a brief moment of silence, the crowd in the square burst into an uproar. So it was him. So it was him? In fact, they had more or less heard of this person. Because this person's experience was simply too legendary. Back then, he did not have any background and had roamed the divine ruins world alone. Arrogant to the extreme. However, this person was truly capable. Weapon-refining venerables were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns in the entire divine ruins. As for him, he only went to find these people. To put it nicely, it was called sparring. To put it bluntly, it was called killing. It was said that the 7 weapon-crafting sovereigns were greatly affected by his repeated defeats. Some went into seclusion for 100 years and cultivated crazily. Some were full of admiration for him. They gave up their families and clans and said that they would follow him no matter what. The last one was the most miserable. Because of the blow, he directly became a monk. The reason was very simple. He realized that he had cultivated for 100 years, but he was not as good as the other party who had cultivated for 10 years. It was really a heavy blow. Moreover, at that time, these 7 matches were held consecutively within 3 months. It was almost a seamless match. After one match, the next one followed. That equipment refinement venerable was the 7th. He had thought that after the previous 6 matches, Mu Tianjing would definitely not be his match. He had never expected that he would lose so badly in the end. He couldn't think straight for a moment. From then on, he abandoned his cultivation and devoted himself to Buddhism. It was also because of this that those first-rate families and clans had formed a grudge with Mu Tianjing. Unfortunately, Mu Tianjing had already become famous at that time. There were many more people who wanted to ask him to help them refine equipment than there were people who wanted his life. Therefore, those people could only leave it unsettled in the end. Unexpectedly, not long after, Mu Tianjing suddenly disappeared. Many people tried their best to find him, but they still couldn't find any trace of him. Some people said that he was dead. Some people said that he had hidden his identity. In short, there were all kinds of guesses. With the passage of time, everyone gradually forgot about this matter. In 1,000 years, the world had changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. If it weren't for this person's amazing achievements back then, no one would have remembered him now. Taizu stroked his beard. But, are you disappointed that I didn't die? Oh no. We definitely didn't mean that. Yao Bin reacted immediately and immediately denied it. Back then, the ancestors of the Yao family had been taught by you and have always been grateful. It's just that they couldn't repay you and have always felt guilty. I never thought that I would be able to see you today. Yao Bin wiped the sweat off his forehead in fear and trepidation. What he said was true. The reason why he could remember Taizu's identity so quickly was indeed because the Yao family had interacted with Taizu before. Back then, Taizu had offended many families and clans, but his ability to refine equipment had helped more people. The Yao family was one of them. Taizu glanced at him, narrowed his eyes, and thought for a long time before saying, "Are you the descendant of Yao Qingxin?" Yao Bin hurriedly said, "Yes." Junior Yao Bin greets Mu Zun. As he spoke, he politely cupped his hands to Chu Luiwei and said apologetically, "Miss Shangguan, I'm really sorry for offending you before." Rong Xiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly and reminded him, is now the princess of the Yuntian Tower. Patriarch Yao, You can just call her Princess. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1490. Taizu suddenly turned around, narrowed his eyes, and looked meaningfully at Rong Xiu. The two men looked at each other. For a moment, there seemed to be sparks. Come here. Chu Luiwei coughed softly and walked over. Taizu put a hand on her shoulder. We are really a family. We don't like to use our real names when we are outside. Since it's a coincidence today, let me formally introduce her to everyone. He looked around, the corners of his lips raised, and his smile was proud. This is my descendant, Shangguan Yu. She is also the most outstanding genius of my Shangguan family. She is the apple of my eye. Everyone heard it clearly. She was a member of the Shangguan family. Chu Luiwei smiled helplessly. Taizu had been with her for a long time. He knew how Rong Xiu treated her, but he still wanted to do this. She didn't know that Taizu didn't say much in the past because he was only an incomplete soul at that time. There wasn't much he could help with. Other than protecting her by her side, he couldn't think of anything else. But it was different now. His divine body had awakened, and he had basically recovered his previous memories and strength. Yu was no longer a lowly outsider. She was the bloodline that Shangguan Jing cared about the most. These people relied on their good backgrounds to criticize Yu and force her step by step. Their Yu was so good. How could they bully her at will? Taizu's voice was deep and powerful. From today onwards, if anyone wants to bully our Yu, they have to ask for my permission first. Every word was sonorous and oppressive. Many people's hearts trembled. This Shangguan Jing wasn't an easy person to get along with. Although he was alone, but he was a venerable weapon refiner. Moreover, he was an abnormal existence who had once defeated 7 weapon refining venerables in a row. In the current Divine Ruins world, this kind of person was simply someone that every family crazily fought to curry favor with. Who would dare to be rude to them? Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Taizu was backing her up. She could clearly feel that the way the people around her looked at her was very different from before. Lingxiao College and Rong Xiu had indeed been helping her. But when Taizu made a move, it was different. Whether it was Lingxiao College or Rong Xiu, to a certain extent, she seemed to be dependent on them. But Taizu was her closest kin. In the Divine Ruins world, without background, you would always be inferior to others. But now, with Taizu here, she was no longer alone. With such a top-notch expert, he was her strongest backer. Now, what else do you want to continue interrogating you? Taizu asked slowly. Many people's expressions changed. What was the point of asking? You've already acted in such a domineering manner, what else do you want others to say? They did not want to end up like Jin Di. Yi Ling Ran quietly retreated, trying to hide his figure as much as possible. At this moment, he realized that the other party had already held back his strength when he attacked just now. Otherwise, he would have been beheaded by now. This Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yu, these two people, were not to be trifled with. He must be crazy to rush to the front like that just now. Taizu glanced at him indifferently and then retracted his gaze. Killing a chicken to warn the monkeys was necessary, but he had to choose a good chicken. A low-level one would dirty his hands. After waiting for a moment, Taizu nodded in satisfaction. It seems that everyone has nothing else to ask. All the misunderstandings have been explained clearly. Then from now on, apologize to our Yu one by one. He raised his chin. Yi Lingren's body stiffened. Let's start with you. Digression. A useless February? I feel that I can't handle it. What I lack today will be made up in the next few days. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1491. Everyone was stunned. They thought that the matter would be over, but they didn't expect this to happen. They didn't ask any more questions. They had already taken a step back and chosen to compromise. Why was Shangguan Jing still unwilling to let them go? It was inappropriate for them to join forces to deal with Shangguan Yu, but that was also for everyone to clear up the matter. They didn't intend to make an example of a child like her. Besides, these people here were of high status. One by one, they lined up to apologize to a little girl. What was going on? Although this little girl was now the princess consort of Yuntian Tower and was also Shangguan Jing's favorite descendant, it was fine for them to apologize. How could they really do that? Shangguan Jing had already expected that they wouldn't agree. Hey, didn't you say that you would apologize to you after the matter is investigated? Are you going back on your word now? Everyone looked at each other. It was just a casual remark. How could they take it seriously? It wasn't that Shangguan Jing didn't understand, but that he had made up his mind to help his baby save face. However, they really couldn't do that. What would happen if word got out? They didn't want to save face. After a moment of silence, Yaobin took the initiative to step forward and speak. Senior Mu, Senior Shangguan, we were indeed in the wrong this time. And part of what happened just now was also related to me. Why don't I represent everyone and apologize to little Shangguan? Perhaps because he remembered Rong Xiu's reminder just now, he didn't say the words, Miss Shangguan, completely. After saying this, Yaobin's back was already covered in cold sweat. A breeze blew, and it was cold. This, on one side was Yuntian Tower, and on the other side was Shangguan Jing. They couldn't afford to offend either of them. Shangguan Jing glanced at him indifferently. You... Before he could say anything, Chu Luiyue suddenly tugged at his sleeve gently. Taizu. Hearing this, Taizu hurriedly turned his head. His originally dignified and cold face suddenly had a cheerful smile. What's wrong, you? The corners of everyone's mouth twitched when they saw how quickly his face changed. You can have double standards, but this is too much. When he turned his head, he saw two completely different faces. Chu Luiyue blinked. Taizu, I think Princess Yao's suggestion is pretty good. Yaobin looked at Chu Luiyue gratefully as if he had been granted amnesty. He wasn't doing this for himself, but mainly because he didn't want to make the situation too tense. If today's matter could be resolved peacefully, it would naturally be for the best. If Shanghai Yu was willing to step in and mediate between the two parties, it would save everyone a lot of trouble. Taizu narrowed his eyes. Do you really think so? Chu Luiyue smiled. That's right. In fact, Princess Yao was right. Everyone was here today to investigate some things. As for me, I might have caused a lot of misunderstandings in the past. It's not a bad idea to use this opportunity to make things clear to everyone. The Taizu's eyes were filled with pity. But you've suffered too much this time. He would feel terrible if he didn't help her vent her anger. You had suffered a lot in the past. It wasn't easy for her to return to Tianling and take back everything that belonged to her. In the blink of an eye, she was surrounded and bullied by so many people in the world of God. If it were someone else, they might not be able to take it. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Her eyes reddened, but her smile was extremely bright. Don't I have you? There was also Rong Xiu and the academy. These people were actually on her side and had been helping her all this time. Taizu, I'm very happy that you're back. I don't feel bad about anything else. Instead of wasting time arguing with these people, it was better to chat with Taizu. Taizu looked at her, his heart aching. But in the end, he gently stroked her hair. Okay, I'll listen to you. Yi Lingran heaved a sigh of relief. His knees went weak and he almost fell to the ground. The attendant beside him hurriedly supported him. Taizu glanced at him and sneered. He felt annoyed just by looking at this kind of thing. The tense hearts of the others also relaxed a lot. Fortunately, things didn't get to the worst point. Yaobin took a deep breath, took a few steps forward, and bowed to Chu Luiyue with cupped fists. Shangguan Yu, we believed Dazzling Eye and made wild guesses. We misunderstood you and caused you a lot of trouble. We're really sorry. I, Yaobin, would like to represent everyone here to solemnly say, I'm sorry. His tone was very sincere. On one hand, he felt that he had misunderstood Chu Luiyue. On the other hand, he wanted to repair his relationship with Shangguan Jing as much as possible. So, at this time, he was showing his utmost sincerity. Others might feel embarrassed, but in Yaobin's opinion, an apology wasn't worth anything. It would be best if Shangguan Jing could let this matter go. Even if it couldn't for the time being, it was good to have a good start. Chu Luiyue smiled and returned the greeting. Princess Yao, you're too polite. These things were obviously planned by someone in the dark. What she really wanted to deal with was the mastermind, not this group of people who were used as tools. After hearing Chu Luiyue's reply, Yao Bin's heart finally relaxed a lot. Suddenly, Tizu, who was standing at the side, raised his eyebrows. That's it? Yao Bin quivered and hurriedly looked at Tizu's expression. After all, he was the princess of Ziguang County and had been in the Divine Ruins world for many years. He still had a discerning eye. He immediately understood Tizu's meaning. Also, well, no matter what, we were in the wrong first this time. We're in the wrong. Just saying sorry is not enough to make up for the harm we've caused you. As he spoke, he took out a sandalwood box from the purple thumb ring on his hand. The box was only the size of a palm, but it was very exquisite and carefully carved. There was a faint layer of light around it. It was not an ordinary item. As he handed the sandalwood box to Chu Luiyue, he explained. This is the Blood Cloud Spirit Ginseng that I just got a while ago. It's a small token of my appreciation. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. Blood Cloud Spirit Ginseng. It was said that it could revive the dead and was very effective. It was also very gentle and did not have any side effects. This thing was extremely precious. Even the Medicine Wind Valley of Lingxiao College did not have it. If Jianghu had this thing just now, she might have been able to save half of her life. She looked at Tizu hesitantly. Princess Yao, you're too polite. Yao Bin pushed forward again. This is nothing. It's just a small thing. Hurry up and accept it. Otherwise, it means that you don't accept this apology. We won't feel at ease, right? Tizu nodded. It's their good intentions. Just accept it. Chu Luiyue, reluctantly, took it. I'm really sorry. Tizu raised his gaze and looked at the others who were watching. Suddenly he smiled. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1492. A quarter of an hour later, Chu Luiyue touched his universe ring, which had been filled up a lot, and was satisfied. This feeling of receiving a gift for free, it couldn't be any better. Not only did he not need to return the gift, he didn't feel the slightest bit of burden. Seniors, you are so generous. Yuer is really ashamed to accept it. Chu Luiyue sighed with emotion. Everyone gritted their teeth silently. Ashamed to accept it? Don't take it. But anyone with eyes could see that you were very happy when you were collecting them. Unfortunately, they couldn't say that. Using a gift to replace an apology was the most acceptable compromise at the moment. Seeing that Chu Luiyue was happy, Tizu's mood improved a lot, and he couldn't help but laugh. Yuer, the people here today are all first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world. What you have is nothing to them. Don't be so noisy all the time. Those who don't know will think that we are deliberately cheating them. Everyone vomited blood. Isn't this cheating them? Their families were rich, but the things they gave out were the treasures of the treasures. This was simply cutting off their flesh. But what could they do? Putting aside Shangguan Yu, Shangguan Jing had sharp eyes. He could tell whether the things given were good or bad, expensive or cheap with just a glance. At this time, who would dare to take the risk of offending him again and pass off shoddy goods as good ones? Therefore, no matter how much their hearts ached, they had to give away the treasures. So be it. As long as they could end today's matter. After a while, someone finally bid farewell and left. In any case, the doubts about Chu Luiyue had basically been explained or resolved today. There was no point in continuing to stay here. Among them, a portion of people, including Yao Bin, were still trying to curry favor with Tizu. If they could establish a relationship with a living weapon refining venerable, the benefits would be unimaginable. However, Tizu was obviously not interested in this and dismissed them with a few words. The only thing he cared about now was Chu Luiyue. How could he care about anything else? When Yao Bin and the others saw that their hopes were slim, they could only leave in disappointment. Shangguan Jing obviously hadn't completely calmed down today, so it was normal for him to ignore them. Perhaps it wouldn't be too late to think of a solution after some time. Soon, the crowd in the huge black and white square dispersed. The surroundings gradually became deserted, but it was also much quieter and more peaceful. Looking at the empty square, Chu Luiwei exhaled softly. It's finally over. He had experienced too many things in a single day. Previously, his mind had been in a tense state, so he didn't feel it. Now that he was suddenly free, a heavy sense of exhaustion swept over him. She was not a god, so of course she would be tired. Dealing with so many people at once, and all of them had extraordinary statuses, he naturally had to be more careful. All of this required a lot of mental energy and strength. Fortunately, everything was resolved smoothly. Furthermore, in the end he even managed to make a huge profit. This made her a lot happier. Taizu! Just as Chu Luiwei opened his mouth, a familiar voice came from behind him. Senior Shangguan. Chu Luiwei turned around. Elder Bo Yen. Everyone from the academy had gathered together, and Elder Bo Yen stood at the front. He smiled and cupped his hands, bowing to Taizu. I've heard a lot about you. I didn't expect to have the chance to meet you in this lifetime. It's really an honor. From the outside, Taizu looked to be in his 30s or 40s, younger than Elder Bo Yen and the others. However, his seniority was the highest among the people present, and even Elder Bo Yen had to call him senior cleanly. Taizu smiled. This venerable one has been asleep for too long. The world outside has changed. During this period of time, I have to thank everyone for taking care of you. Previously, he had stayed with Chu Luiwei in Lingxiao College for a period of time. He knew that these people were sincerely good to Chu Luiwei, so his attitude towards them was much better than when he faced those people just now. Seeing him like this, Elder Bo Yen and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Based on the situation just now, they thought that this venerable one would be difficult to get along with. You're too polite. Shanghai Yu is a student of our Lingxiao College, so we naturally have to protect her. Also, this time, we didn't protect her well and caused her to be wronged. Elder Bo Yen sighed. Taizu frowned slightly, and the unhappiness in his heart dissipated. His Yu might not blame the academy, but he was different. Yu was wronged, and he couldn't help but feel that Lingxiao College didn't do its duty. The reason why he didn't pursue the matter was because he knew that Lingxiao College was already doing its duty to an ordinary student. Moreover, Yu's relationship with the academy had always been good, and he didn't want to cause trouble because of this. It was good that Elder Bo Yen was willing to take the initiative to admit it. The expression in his eyes softened a lot. This venerable one knows that this matter was planned by someone behind the scenes. Elder Bo Yen, you don't have to blame yourself. Oh? Then do you know who that person is? Elder Bo Yen and the others were shocked. Taizu thought for a moment and shook his head. We only have some clues, but we haven't completely investigated it. Everyone was a little disappointed. It's good to have clues. As long as we investigate carefully, we will definitely be able to figure out what's going on. Elder Huafeng happily came out to smooth things over. Senior Shangguan, Bo Yen, since the matter is over, let's go back to the academy. Elder Wensi reminded from the side. It wasn't appropriate to stand here forever. Let's go back first. Too many things have happened today, and you must be tired. When he said the two words, Elder Bo Yen paused for a moment, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. She roughly knew what Elder Bo Yen was thinking. Elder Bo Yen is right. Taizu, let's go back first. Chu Luiwei smiled. Taizu nodded and patted her head. A wonderful show came to an end. When everyone returned to the academy, they were still filled with emotions when they thought of everything that had happened today. Originally, Elder Bo Yen and the others wanted to ask Chu Luiwei something, but Taizu rejected them with the reason that she wanted to rest. Everyone could only give up and let Chu Luiwei go back to rest. Taizu naturally followed Chu Luiwei back to Mount Zhuang. Rong Xiu followed the two to the door. Just as he was about to enter, Taizu turned around and gave him a meaningful look. Rong Xiu, the two of us have something to say. He was chasing him away. Ever since he became the son of Saint, Rong Xiu had never been rejected like this. However, the noble holy son seemed to have expected this. He immediately stopped in his tracks and smiled. Then I won't disturb you when you leave. If you have any instructions, just say it. With that, he really left. His gaze turned slightly, and his deep phoenix eyes paused on Chu Yue's face for a moment. Taizu snorted in his heart. It wasn't that easy to kidnap you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1493. Chu Lue followed Taizu into the house. The door closed. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly, and a faint smile flashed across his thin crimson lips. Previously, he had only vaguely guessed this person's identity, but now it seemed that he was more protecting you. But this was also good. With Taizu around, she should be much more at ease. Rong Xiu. Outside the barrier, Elder Wensi suddenly appeared and waved at him. Bo Yen is looking for you. Rong Xiu turned back to look at the tightly shut door and nodded slightly. He took a step forward and left with Elder Wensi. Donghuang Bell Tower. In the main hall. When Rong Xiu entered, he saw that the elders present today were all here. In addition, Mu Hongyu was also here. It seemed that she also wanted to ask about you. Rong Xiu's thoughts raced, but his expression remained unchanged. Elders, may I know why you've called me here? Elder Bo Yen looked at him and said lightly, Don't you know about your princess consort? Several pairs of eyes looked over. The atmosphere seemed to freeze for a moment. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. I thought that you were planning to wait for her to come over and ask her together. We want to, but Shengguan Jing won't let her go. Elder Huafeng pinched the space between his eyebrows. Weren't you chased out too? Rong Xiu paused and slowly said, That's right. You, naturally has a lot to say to Taizu when they meet. We have a long time in the future, so we're not in a hurry. Everyone, how could he compete with Taizu? He was really hopeless. Sit down and talk. Elder Bo Yen raised his hand. There are some things that you should explain clearly first. It's the same. When that girl comes over later, we'll pick some things and ask in detail. Know yourself and your enemy, and you will never be defeated. It was only today that they realized that they knew nothing about that girl. Of course, the main reason they were in such a hurry was that they wanted to confirm something immediately. Rong Xiu gently nodded. All right, elders, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. After he said that, the people present didn't know what to say for a moment. After a moment of silence, Elder Wanjing nodded. Rong Xiu Shengguanyu? Other than this name, do you have any other identities? As soon as these words came out, everyone's spirit instantly tensed up. Several pairs of eyes fell on Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu nodded. The atmosphere in the hall instantly changed. Really? Elder Bo Yen leaned forward and asked anxiously. What identity? Rong Xiu paused slightly. It's a long story. Speak slowly. Explain it bit by bit. The elders were obviously very concerned about this matter. Mu Hongyu, who was standing at the side, widened her eyes slightly. Her mind was filled with doubts. Ever since she was called over, she felt that something was wrong. The elders seemed to be unusually concerned about Luyu. Everyone here was of high status. It didn't seem appropriate for her to be here. Then I'll start from the beginning. If there's anything missing, Mu Hongyu, you can fill in the gaps later. Rong Xiu said calmly. Mu Hongyu was taken aback when her name was suddenly called. She instinctively nodded. The elders' gazes swept past Mu Hongyu. The reason why they called her over was because they could tell that her relationship with Shengguan Yu was not ordinary. Every bit of information they could get was important. Everyone quieted down and waited patiently. Rong Xiu pondered for a moment. Du? Or has another name, Chu Lue. Jianghu Mountain. Chu Lue and Taizu sat opposite each other. Taizu looked at her carefully and said with concern, Look at our you. You're so tired that you've lost weight. Has it been very tiring recently? His words were heartwarming. Chu Liuyue's heart warmed as she shook her head. Thank you for your concern, Taizu. It's not tiring for you. Taizu's face was full of disapproval. Those people bullied you all the way to the entrance of Lingxiao College. How can you say it's not tiring? If it were someone else, I'm afraid that only someone as outstanding as are you could deal with them. Courage, wisdom, and strength. None of them could be missing. Great ancestor, actually this time I got the Academy's help and invited them over. There have been a lot of rumors about me recently. That's why I wanted to solve all the problems in one go. Chu Luiwei briefly explained the ins and outs of the matter to Taizu. Taizu heaved a long sigh when he heard the story. After a long while, he said, "It's all Taizu's fault for coming too late. If he had come earlier, Yu would not have suffered so much. She was alone, but she still had to put in so much effort to deal with so many people. Which one of them was easy to deal with?" Chu Luiwei shook her head, her eyes shining. "No, Taizu, your coming is the biggest surprise for me. You haven't told me what you are." Taizu knew that she had been wanting to ask this, so he didn't hide it. "You guessed right. That place is indeed the tomb I prepared for myself." Chu Luiwei was shocked. Prepared for herself? Back then I left the Tianling dynasty and went to the Divine Ruins world. In the northern region of the primeval world, I accidentally obtained the inheritance of a certain expert and broke through to become a venerable artificer. At that time I was frivolous. After breaking through, I chose to enter the world and challenged several venerables in a row without losing. Taizu's tone was very calm when he talked about these glorious deeds. His old eyes were calm and filled with vicissitudes of life, as if they could contain all things. Chu Luiwei was secretly shocked. What kind of strength was this? At that time, I enjoyed all the glory, so I naturally became more arrogant. Taizu paused. Until later, I met the Great Phoenix Dragon. The Great Phoenix Dragon? Chu Luiwei was suddenly stunned. I've heard some rumors before. It said that you fought with the Great Phoenix Dragon's dragon clan, but no one said that Taizu directly fought with the Great Phoenix Dragon. Taizu sneered. Those old things are very proud. If the world knows that they were defeated by me, wouldn't they lose all their face? That one sentence contained too much information. Chu Luiwei was shocked speechless. So the one who fought with Taizu back then was the Great Phoenix Dragon? Most importantly, the one who lost was the Great Phoenix Dragon? Before the battle, I knew that something was wrong, so I prepared a tomb in advance. Later on, it turned out that this decision was very correct. I used this method to protect my divine body. Taizu couldn't help but smile proudly. Actually, that rumor is half true. At that time, there were indeed 9 green, red, and white dragons that came to surround me, but other than that, there was also a Great Phoenix Dragon. However, they hid the existence of the Great Phoenix Dragon. After a bitter battle, I simply chose to die with those 9 dragons and suppress them. I won't come out for 1,000 years. Only that Great Phoenix Dragon took advantage of the chaos to escape. Chu Luiwei's emotions churned when he heard this, and he couldn't help but ask, Taizu, why did they treat you like this? If they were also ancient divine beasts, how could they do such a thing of using numbers to bully others? Taizu coughed. That's nothing, it's just that. I was planning to use the bones of a Great Phoenix Dragon to refine artifacts, but they found out. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1494. Chu Luiwei was speechless. It seemed that Rong Xiu was right. Some things were really passed down from generation to generation. Chu Luiwei felt that she was already very good at causing trouble, but compared to her ancestor, she paled in comparison and wasn't even worth mentioning. Using the Great Phoenix Dragon's skeleton to refine a weapon. What was Taizu thinking? As if embarrassed by Chu Luiwei's stare, Taizu waved his hand and explained. Actually, I didn't do it on purpose. At that time, I just thought that the skeleton was not bad and that it might belong to some divine beast, but I didn't expect it to belong to the Great Phoenix Dragon race. If I had known, I wouldn't have done that. After all, the Great Phoenix Dragon race was one of the 2 great ancient divine beasts. No matter how arrogant he was, he shouldn't have courted death like that. Chu Luiwei glanced at him faintly. Taizu looked away guiltily. Actually, it's the skeleton you obtained in the Tianling God realm back then. The corner of Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched. You'd rather fight to the death with them than return it? After all, it was the skeleton of their race. This didn't seem too appropriate, especially now that she had contracted Dumpling and Zichen. She more or less understood these things. These divine beast races valued the skeletons of their own race very much and had never allowed them to wander outside. Taizu was like that. No way. Actually, when I found out that it was the skeleton of the great phoenix dragon race, I wanted to return it, but they didn't listen and wanted to take my life no matter what. What could I do? I could only fight them head-on. Chu Luiwei felt a headache coming on. At that time, there was really no other way. After thinking about it, I divided my soul into 3 parts. One part was hidden in the jade pendant, one part was hidden in the half-god realm, and secretly sent it back to the Tianling god realm. The last part was left in the divine body to fight with them. At that time, he didn't know if he could survive, so he could only choose this method. That was why his soul was scattered and his god domain was incomplete. Chu Luiwei heaved a heartfelt sigh. Taizu, your luck is truly extraordinary. He was actually able to survive in such a situation. The most important thing was that he could gather his soul, awaken his god body, and come back to life. This was truly heaven-defying. Taizu sighed. Actually, this is all thanks to you. If you hadn't entered the Tianling god realm, brought my soul to the divine ruins world, found that jade pendant, and arrived at the northern region of the primordial world, even if I slept for another 10,000 years, it would be meaningless. They were connected by blood, and it was only by relying on the power of this bloodline that he finally woke up. At that time, he had no choice but to risk his life and gamble with his life. Fortunately, after 1,000 years, this bet was finally won. Chu Luiwei smiled. I've always been very lucky. In any case, it was great that Taizu was able to come back to life. Taizu smiled and nodded. Our you is naturally the best. Don't worry, with Taizu around in the future, no one will dare to bully you. Chu Luiwei nodded seriously, his heart calm and at ease. Oh right. Chu Luiwei suddenly thought of something, and hesitation appeared on his face. Taizu, is the grudge between you and the great phoenix dragon considered settled? Now that you're awake, do they know? Taizu's smile suddenly froze. Chu Luiwei's heart sank, and a sense of uneasiness surged. Ah! Taizu smiled awkwardly. Although the 9 dragons are dead, the dragon race has an extremely strong perception of corpses. Now that I've woken up, the great phoenix dragon race should know, right? By the way, you've hidden that skeleton well. No one found it, right? Chu Luiwei's eyelids twitched. Oh, maybe. Thousands of miles away. Divine Dragon Realm. Above the dark blue sea, a huge hemispherical golden barrier floated quietly, and its aura was shocking. Within the barrier, there were islands in picturesque disorder. The mountains on the island were continuous, and the trees were lush. Occasionally, dragons would fly across the sky, their scales flickering under the sunlight. Suddenly, a dragon's roar came from the island in the center. The sound shook the sky, and the aura was vast. For a moment, the dragons were in awe. They lowered their heads. Then, a purple gold light suddenly flew from the island. It shot straight into the sky. It's been 1,000 years, and he's still alive. This time, they must not let him go. Lingxiao College. Donghuang Bell Tower. That's it? Elder Bo Yen frowned and asked. Rong Xiu nodded and glanced at Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu immediately said, No, that's all. No, that's all I know, Yi Zichen replied. The room fell silent again. Hongyu, there's nothing for you to do here. Go back and rest first. Elder Bo Yen thought for a moment and said, Mu Hongyu knew that they still had something to say, so she immediately responded tactfully and turned to leave. After she left, the atmosphere in the room became even stranger. The few of them looked at Rong Xiu. So, Sheng Guanyu has nothing to do with you? Elder Hua Feng stared at him as if he wanted to see through him. But, how do you explain that she can use the Xian formation left behind by the first dean? Rong Xiu lowered his eyes. I taught her that. Is it really such a coincidence? Elder Hua Feng was full of doubts. The room fell into silence for a moment. Elder Wanzheng suddenly said, since that's the case, I have an idea. Let Shangguan Yu test the Qingyun roll again. This time, all 4 rolls will be tested. Digression, I'm going out today and might not be able to return home until very late, so I'll put it on tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1495. This method will work. Elder Bo Yin also expressed his agreement. Previously, Shanghai Yu had only tested the celestial physician list. Although they knew that she was talented in other aspects, they had never tested her before. It just so happens that she hasn't taken the test at the beginning of the month for a long time. This way, we can also see how strong she is now. A few months ago, when she first came to the academy, her strength in all aspects was still relatively average. But after this period of experience, her level had increased a lot, and it was time for her to take the test again. Rong Xiu pondered for a moment and nodded. Jianghu Mountain. When Chu Luwe walked out of the room, she saw Elder Wensi waiting for her. Elder Wensi, why are you here? Chu Luwe was a little surprised and immediately walked over. Elder Wensi glanced into the room. Chu Luwe understood and smiled. Taizu is resting now. Are you looking for him? Elder Wensi quickly shook his head. No, I'm here for you. He waved at Chu Luwe. Come out first. Chu Luwe looked back hesitantly, then nodded in agreement. She opened the barrier and flew out. Elder Wensi, what's the matter? Elder Wensi rubbed his hands, feeling a little embarrassed. Actually, it's nothing important. We all feel that you have improved a lot during this period of time. If it's convenient for you, can you go and take the test of the Qingyun roll? Chu Luwe was stunned. Don't misunderstand. We just want to see what level you have reached now. Also, it can let the other students in the academy follow your example and work harder. Elder Wensi quickly explained. Chu Luwe stared at him for a while, and her mind turned quickly. She thought that she probably knew what Elder Wensi wanted to do with this trip. After a pause, she nodded with a smile. Then let's go now. Now! Elder Wensi was a little surprised. He looked inside again. Then Senior Shangguan. It's just a ranking test. It's not a big deal. The Taizu had come from afar and was a little tired. It was a good opportunity for him to rest. It just so happens that I also want to see what rank I can get on the list. Only then did Elder Wensi relax. Then, come with me. When Chu Luwe arrived at Qingming Plaza, he saw that Elder Bo Yin and the rest were already there. Rong Xiu, who had been called over earlier, was also present. Perhaps it was because they had already specifically instructed that there were no extra people here. Chu Luwe stepped forward with a calm expression and saluted the elders. Elder Bo Yin laughed. Last you're here. Did I disturb you and Senior Shangguan? Chu Luwe smiled and shook his head. No, Taizu is resting. That's good. Elder Bo Yin nodded his head and immediately explained. Actually, this matter isn't that urgent. After all, you've just experienced a lot. Chu Luwe blinked. There's nothing troublesome about the ranking test. Also, I'm a little curious, so I came. Seeing that Chu Luwe's attitude was so upright and magnanimous, the elders were a little hesitant. Could it be, were they really wrong? Then let's not talk nonsense. Let's start. Elder Bo Yin thought for a while. Now that you're already at the middle stage of the 9th level, it's your biggest improvement. Why don't you try the ranking first? First? Chu Luwe's sharp senses caught this word. She thought about it and immediately understood. So there was more than one ranking test. She smiled and walked to the front of the warrior ranking board without hesitation. The few elders turned their gazes over. Although their expressions were calm, the surging waves in their eyes showed that they were not so calm in their hearts. Chu Luwe raised her hand and placed it on the black stone wall. Her hand seemed especially slender and white against the dark and deep stone wall. The two extreme colors intertwined and seemed to be fixed into a painting. Chu Luiwei held her breath. The few elders couldn't help but feel nervous. Suddenly, Chu Luiwei felt a gaze on her. She turned her head and looked at Rong Xiu. His phoenix eyes were deep and unfathomable. With just a glance, it was as if one would be drawn into it, forgetting everything and choosing to sink into it. It's just a test. Don't be nervous. Just do your best. A light smile flashed across Rong Xiu's lips as he asked gently. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat and she nodded. Then, she retracted her gaze and looked at the stone wall in front of her. In the next moment, she activated the force in her body and it surged out. Buzz. With a buzzing sound, the green cloud ranking appeared. On the black stone wall, countless streaks of light flickered and quickly condensed into names. The warrior ranking appeared. Almost at the same time, the dark area at the very top that had been deliberately covered up suddenly loosened. This movement was extremely small, as if something was trying to break out from inside. But from the outside, no abnormality could be seen. Therefore, Elder Bo Yen and the others did not notice this small movement. However, Chu Luiwei's palm was on the green cloud ranking. She could immediately detect any small change on it. She almost subconsciously wanted to raise her head to take a look. But this impulse only flashed past her heart. She remained calm and collected, concealing these emotions. Force continued to surge out. Crack crack. The sound became more frequent, and it seemed to be louder than before. Chu Luiwei's heart seemed to be beating violently along with this sound. The elders looked at each other and saw the confusion and suspicion in each other's eyes. It's been a while, why hasn't Shangguan Yu's name appeared on it? Middle stage 9th stage was not considered high among the students of Lingxiao College. After all, the standard for their admission was to be a 9th stage warrior. An ordinary 9th stage warrior might not even be able to be the last in the ranking. But Shangguan Yu was different. Her combat power was obviously much stronger than cultivators of the same level. As long as she tested with all her strength, she would definitely be on the ranking. But now, why was there no movement? Elder Wanzheng looked at the top and frowned. There was once a name that shone brightly there. But now, only darkness was left. The other elders followed his gaze and looked over. Their expressions were different, and their gazes were complicated. Only Rong Xiu looked indifferent and calm. It was as if he was not worried at all. Crack crack crack. Chu Luiwei could clearly feel that something was trying to break out from the seal. And she was extremely familiar with that power. Her heart seemed to be tightly clenched by something. If this continued, she was afraid that, boom, a loud sound suddenly came from afar. This sound was deafening, and everyone was shocked to the point that they immediately turned around. Chu Luiwei was no exception. In the next moment, she suddenly widened her eyes in shock. Something happened on Thousand Wine Mountain. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1496. The person who shouted was Elder Bo Yen. He quickly flew into the air and looked in the direction of Thousand Wine Mountain with a shocked expression. The other elders also reacted immediately and followed one after another. It was no wonder that they had such a big reaction. Something unusual had really happened at Thousand Wine Mountain. Above the sky, layers of dark clouds rolled over and finally gathered above Thousand Wine Mountain, covering the sky and the sun. The wind whistled, and thunder rumbled. And that loud sound was the sound of thunder coming from the clouds. It was so powerful that it shook one's heart. Chu Luiwei looked at this scene and couldn't help but frown slightly. What's going on? Every mountain peak in the academy had been specially set up with enchantments. And Thousand Wine Mountains was especially special. Ever since Chu Luiwei caused trouble there, Elder Bo Yen and the others had specially strengthened the barrier outside the mountain. Compared to the other mountains, Thousand Wine Mountain's barrier was definitely top-notch. As a result, any movement on the Thousand Wine Mountain would be blocked by the barrier. From the outside, no one could detect any problems at all. Otherwise, when Chu Luiwei transferred the Dragon Abyss Sword's soul to Scarlet Heaven Sword at Thousand Wine Mountain, it would have already spread in the academy and caused an uproar. Yet now, the natural abnormal sign had actually managed to bypass the spirit formation. This scale and aura was much stronger than what she had seen in the past. Countless thoughts flashed through Chu Liyue's mind, but she couldn't figure out a precise possibility. What's going on? This shocking commotion quickly attracted the attention of the entire academy. Countless figures flew out from the various mountains. Everyone looked in the direction of the terrifying commotion. What's going on? Why is there such a big commotion? Could it be that someone is about to break through? Look at that direction, it seems to be Thousand Wine Mountain. Could it be that an elder is refining a weapon? Refining weapons shouldn't be like this. Because they were worried that refining weapons would disturb everyone, the elders set up layers of barriers on the mountain over there. Under normal circumstances, this kind of situation wouldn't happen. I really don't know what's going on this time. But that's really the location of Thousand Wine Mountain, right? Did something happen to Mount Thousand Wine again? Everyone was talking about it. Not long ago, when the Thousand Wine Mountain was forcefully closed, they felt that something was wrong. Who would have thought that there would be such a huge commotion today? Elder Bo Yen stared at Thousand Wine Mountain with a heavy gaze. Why did this happen all of a sudden? They had checked it several times before, and there was no problem. Calculating the time, it shouldn't be now. His expression was cold and stern as he spoke in a deep voice. Whence it? Immediately summon the academy's elders and lead the students to gather at Qingming Plaza. Yes. Hua Feng, Wan Zheng, come with me. The two elders were clearly aware of the seriousness of the matter and nodded in silence. Elder Bo Yen took a step forward and turned back to take a look. Rong Xiu, protect her. Rong Xiu nodded. Elders, be careful. Elder Bo Yen and the others headed straight for Thousand Wine Mountain. The entire academy was in chaos. Chu Luiyue put down his hand. The light on the warrior ranking quickly dissipated and returned to calmness. That frightening cracking sound no longer appeared. However, that familiar feeling lingered in her heart and could not be erased. Chu Luiyue stared at the black stone wall and finally looked up. The name that was covered was still dark, and his appearance could not be seen. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips and felt complicated. A large, dry and warm hand suddenly reached over and held hers. Chu Luiyue turned around. What are you thinking about? Rong Xiu asked. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. She could tell that Rong Xiu did not want the elders to know her identity. Thousand Wine Mountain is related to you? Her voice was very low, as if it was about to dissipate with the wind. Rong Xiu shook his head and intertwined his fingers with hers. I don't know either. He did have a way to hide it from everyone, but before he could use it, something happened at Thousand Wine Mountain. He raised his gaze slightly and looked at the pressure and momentum that were still increasing. He quickly frowned. Then he held Chu Liyue's hand tightly and said in a low voice, "Don't worry, I'm here." Chu Liyue was stunned, and then a white light flashed through her mind. Wait, could it be that the incident at Thousand Wine Mountain had something to do with her? To a large extent, Dumpling was able to break through to the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix realm because of the spring at Thousand Wine Mountain. She was originally a little worried, but after Dumpling broke through, Thousand Wine Mountain was calm as usual. Everything was as usual, so she did not take this matter to heart. Now that she saw the abnormality at Thousand Wine Mountain, she suddenly remembered this. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Thousand Wine Mountain had a special status in Lingxiao College. Although the students often went there to play, they did not dare to act rashly. This was also one of the reasons why the elders let them go up without worry. However, after she came, she caused a ruckus there twice. It was obvious that the elders of the college were accumulating Tianlei in the spring. Although she still didn't know what it was used for, the elders obviously wouldn't waste their time on it. And most of those Tianlei had been devoured by Dumpling. Didn't that mean? She lifted her foot and was about to step forward. Rong Xiu pulled her back, looked at her calmly, and shook his head gently. Wait first. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, but after hesitating for a moment, she finally chose to wait on the spot. If there really was any trouble, she could not absolve herself from the blame. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1497. More and more students and elders gathered at Qingming Square. Many of them had not realized what was going on and were still in a daze. However, many of them were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped when they saw Rong Xiu and Chu Liwei. They knew Rong Xiu, but who was the girl next to him? She looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. Her clothes were simple, but it did not hide her beauty. Her appearance could topple a city, and her grace was outstanding as well. Just by standing there, she seemed to have gathered all the light. Everything around him seemed to have become much dimmer. Except for Rong Xiu. Seeing the two tightly clasped hands and their intimate posture, almost everyone felt as if they had been hit in the head with a stick and were dumbfounded. Since when did Rong Xiu get so close to a girl? Moreover, why did this woman look so familiar? Chu Liwei and the others had just returned, and the elders had been wondering about her identity, so they did not pay attention to the school. The incident in Fang State City had not spread, so no one knew about it. Mu Hongyu had just left the Donghuang Bell Tower when she was summoned by the elders. She immediately saw Rong Xiu and Chu Liwei standing in the middle. She had no choice. She stood out from the crowd and was too eye-catching. Chu Liwei was pulled back from her thoughts by the crisp sound. She looked up and saw Mu Hongyu. She waved at her. The surrounding people subconsciously made way for her. Mu Hongyu walked over quickly without any hindrance. She had not seen Chu Liu's familiar face for a long time. Moreover, she had not had the chance to talk to her in Fang State City, so she could not help but feel a little emotional when she saw her now. She wanted to jump into Chu Liu's arms, but before she could do so, she felt a cold gaze sweep past her. Mu Hongyu coughed and stood in front of Chu Liwei politely. She did not dare to touch her. "Lu Yu, why didn't you rest well before coming here?" She hadn't even had the time to change her clothes yet. Chu Liwei smiled. "Something happened here, so I came here." Mu Hongyu thought she was talking about the loud sound just now, so she nodded and looked at Wan Jiushan. "The elders asked us to come here quickly. I don't know what happened." She had not been in the school for long, so she was naturally not sure about the situation. "Chu Liwei, let's wait here. The elders should be able to handle it." Mu Hongyu did not suspect and nodded. On the other side, Luo Shishir, Luo Yanlin, and the others also walked over. When he saw Chu Liwei, Luo Yanlin's face darkened. Unlike the others, he had already heard about what happened outside from Luo Yanming and the others. Naturally, he knew that the so-called Chu Yu's true identity was Shangguanyu, the rumored princess of the Yuntian Tower. In other words, she was Rong Xiu's woman. After hearing all that, Luo Yanlin felt terrible. When he saw her in person, his feelings were even more complicated. His sister actually fell in love with a woman. Originally, he had already thought that if she really insisted, he would ask Chu Yu for her opinion. Fortunately, he did not do that. Otherwise, he would have lost all his face. Luo Yanlin was angry. However, when he thought about it carefully, it was his sister's unrequited love from the beginning to the end. Chu Yu had always been restrained and polite. There was nothing wrong with it. At the end of the day, he could not blame her. Luo Yanlin could only silently swallow his blood. His sister was going to snatch someone from Rong Xiu. Just thinking about it was exciting enough. He took a deep breath and glanced at Luo Shishir. Fortunately, Luo Shishir had basically regained her composure. This was the only thing that comforted him. On the other hand, Zhuosheng was being pulled by many people to ask what had happened in Fang State City and who the beautiful woman who had suddenly appeared was. Zhuosheng was stunned by the questions and scratched his head casually. She's Chu Yu." Everyone was in an uproar. Chu Liwei could clearly feel that the gazes on her had become even more anxious. Fortunately, her psychological endurance had always been quite good, so she did not take these things to heart. Her eyes were fixed on Thousand Wine Mountain. If Rong Xiu had not held her back, she would have already rushed over. The surrounding people obviously did not realize the seriousness of the matter at Thousand Wine Mountain. Zhuosheng was annoyed after being asked so many questions, so he decided to tell them everything. Of course, he chose the exciting content to say. Everyone exclaimed in surprise as they listened, their hearts filled with shock. Almost everyone's attention was focused on Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu. I really didn't expect Chu Yu to be from Shangguanyu. So she's the princess that senior brother Rong Xiu personally chose. No wonder senior brother Rong Xiu treats her so well. Didn't they say that she's an outsider? But her talent is too amazing. And that weapon refining venerable is actually her Taizu. With such a background, who dares to say that she's not worthy? Am I the only one who noticed that she broke through from the early stage of the 8th stage to the middle stage of the 9th stage in just a few months? Oh, I'm already numb. There was no other way. This person could casually pick out any one of them and it would make others envious and jealous. After a few times, one would get used to it. Chu Luiyue did not care about this at this moment. Dumpling, did you leave any evidence in the spring of Thousand Wine Mountain? She asked in her heart. Dumpling was stunned for a moment and looked hesitant. I don't think so. Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. However, at this moment, a fluctuation suddenly spread out from the barrier outside the academy. At the same time, a deep and vast dragon's roar resounded throughout the world. Shangguan Jing, get out here. Digression, 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1498. This furious roar carried the might of thunder as it reverberated between heaven and earth, clearly landing in the ears of everyone in the academy. Everyone's expression changed, and they immediately looked at Chu Luiyue in unison. Shangguan Jing, wasn't that the Taizu of Shangguanyu? Was he the rumored extremely powerful weapon refining supremacy? Just who was it that was so daring to clamor outside the Ling Shao Academy? Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly sank. That dragon's roar, everyone, calm down. A low shout that was full of vigor was heard. It was filled with pressure. This caused the originally restless Qingming Square to quickly quiet down. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. It was Elder Danqing who spoke. They had not seen each other for a while. Elder Danqing looked much more haggard, and the hair at his temples was much whiter, as if it was covered in a layer of frost. He was about to fly towards the gate of the academy when he suddenly stopped and looked at Chu Luiyue. Chu, Shangguanyu, go and invite Senior Shangguan to see what's going on. Chu Luiyue nodded. Elder Danqing looked at her with a complicated expression. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he left without saying a word. Chu Luiyue turned back and glanced at him. Although Elder Danqing and Jianghu severed their master-disciple relationship, he still sincerely taught her for several years. Now that she's gone, it's inevitable that he's sad. Rong Xiu said lightly, "Don't mind it." Although Elder Danqing was biased in the past, he wouldn't go so far as to blame us for what happened. To say that it was resentment, it really couldn't be considered hatred. At most, she felt a little complicated. After all, a person's death was like a lamp going out. Chu Luiyue retracted her gaze. I know. If Elder Danqing really could not get over it, he would definitely come to her directly. Actually, what I'm worried about now is, Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. If he guessed correctly, the person who came today was very likely to be, I'll accompany you back to Jianghu Mountain. Rong Xiu squeezed her hand. Chu Luiyue nodded and immediately set off with Rong Xiu. On the way there, the two of them bumped into Taizu, who happened to be coming out. Taizu! Chu Luiyue immediately went up to him. Are you all right? Taizu held her and looked her up and down. After confirming that she was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. The uneasiness in Chu Luiyue's heart grew stronger, and he grabbed Taizu's sleeve tightly. Taizu, there seems to be the Great Void Phoenix Dragon Clan. Taizu's expression was grave as he enunciated each word. Their movements are quite fast. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be gripped by something. Taizu and the Great Void Phoenix Dragon Clan had a huge grudge. This time, not long after Taizu woke up, they directly chased him to Lingshao College. It was obvious that they were serious. If he didn't handle it well, he was afraid. Don't worry. This is Taizu's own business. It won't implicate you and Lingxiao College. Taizu patted Chu Liyue's head gently and said in a gentle voice. Chu Liyue frowned. You? Is a descendant of the Shangguan clan. Naturally, we should advance and retreat together with Taizu. Taizu was stunned when he heard that. Endless emotions seemed to surge in his eyes. In the end, thousands of words turned into one sentence. Good you? The Shangguan clan had never been afraid of any danger. Don't worry. When I chose to wake up this time, I knew that I would have to face all of this. The great ancestor laughed out loud. Just wait in the college. Taizu will solve these problems. But Chu Liyue wanted to go out with him, but on second thought, she might only be a burden if she went, so she swallowed the rest of her words. Then you must be careful. Taizu nodded and looked at Rong Xiu meaningfully. Rong Xiu nodded calmly. Taizu was relieved. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Chu Liyue raised her gaze slightly and looked in the direction of the college's gate. She knew that at this moment, the great phoenix dragon was waiting for them outside. She didn't know if Taizu could successfully solve these problems this time. Chu Liyue slowly clenched her fists. The reason why she was so worried was that Taizu and the great Void Phoenix Dragon clan had been accumulating hatred for a long time. On the other hand, back then, when she helped Zichen reconstruct his body, she used the 2 wing bones of the great Void Phoenix Dragon's corpse. Although the remaining corpse had been sealed in the Heavenly Square Cauldron. But now that the great Void Phoenix Dragon clan was outside the college's barrier, she felt that this would be a big hidden danger. It was like a time bomb that would explode at any time. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. It was from the Thousand Wine Mountain. Chu Liyue frowned and looked back. Dark clouds gathered in the sky above the Thousand Wine Mountain, forming a huge vortex. The sky was dark, and a storm swept through, as if it was going to swallow the Thousand Wine Mountain. Thunder rumbled from the clouds, and silver snake-like lightning swam everywhere. From time to time, it lit up half the sky, but it made everything seem even more treacherous and terrifying. A storm was coming. From here, one could vaguely see the figures of Elder Bo Yen and the others rushing towards the Thousand Wine Mountain. In the gloomy world, their figures actually seemed so small and insignificant. Chu Liyue slowly clenched her fists. Thousand Wine Mountain. When Elder Bo Yen and the others arrived, they found that the barrier outside the mountain had already shattered. This was also one of the reasons why this commotion was clearly seen by everyone. But this was not the thing that worried the elders the most. Because the spring at the top of the mountain had stopped flowing. It was still daytime. The spring seems to be freezing. Elder Wanjing shouted in a deep voice, and there was a rare trace of panic in his eyes. How could this be? Elder Hua Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. There's so much Tianlei inside. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be at this time. Elder Bo Yen made a prompt decision. Immediately lead Tianlei into the spring. At this time, there was no time to think about why this would happen. The most important thing now was to solve the problem. Elder Wan Zheng and Elder Hua Feng nodded solemnly. Elder Bo Yen took the lead, and with a flash, he went straight for the spring. Boom! Suddenly, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck down. It fell in front of Elder Bo Yen. Sparks flew everywhere. The violent and terrifying energy seemed to want to tear everything apart. Elder Bo Yen was shocked and immediately set up a barrier in front of him. At the same time, he retreated. However, his chest was still hit by the aftershock. Bo Yen. How are you? Are you okay? The 2 elders immediately went forward and supported him. Elder Bo Yen shook his head, but his expression was very ugly. I'm fine. But this spring. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. They looked up and saw that it was Elder Ouyang. His expression was anxious as he quickly ran over. When he saw the frost at the edge of the spring, he could not help but be shocked and immediately cursed. Who the F***CK stole the Tianlei power from here? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1499. These words caused Elder Bo Yen and the others to be stunned on the spot. Ouyang, what did you say? Tianlei's power had been stolen? How is this possible? Elder Ouyang's figure flashed and flew to the side of the few of them. His expression was anxious and angry as he pointed at the spring. The Tianlei's power that had accumulated for several years inside. If it wasn't stolen, how could it suddenly erupt? He had been wandering around here every day, but he hadn't noticed it at all. Now that it had happened so suddenly, it would be difficult to deal with it. Then what should we do? Elder Hua Feng was at a loss. This 1,000 Wine Mountain had a special status. Under normal circumstances, it was mainly guarded by Elder Ouyang and the other weapon refiners in the academy. The other elders would at most play a supporting role. Although they knew that the 1,000 Wine Mountain was important and that the spring was very precious and could not be touched casually, most of them did not know the specific situation. Now that it had happened so suddenly, they could only be anxious, but they did not know what to do. Elder Ouyang rubbed his face in annoyance. What should we do? What should we do? The freezing of the spring proves that a lot of the Tianlei's power has been stolen. Even if all the weapon refiners in the academy were to refine weapons together and trigger the Tianlei, I'm afraid it would be too late. One had to know that in order to control this spring, they had been working diligently for several years and had spent a lot of effort. Now that something had happened, how could they save it in time? The few of them realized the seriousness of the matter and fell silent with solemn expressions. At this moment, another figure was rapidly approaching them. They raised their heads and saw that it was Shang Yusen. He frowned and looked at them. The spring has started to freeze. Why are you all still here? Shang Yusen, why are you still in the academy? Elder Hua Feng asked in surprise. According to the previous pattern, he would not stay in the academy for more than a month. But this time, he had been back for a long time, and he had not left yet. Shang Yusen resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Hua Feng, what time is it now? You still have the mood to care about this? Actually, he just wanted to stay in the academy for a while longer and look for Chuyu to study the Scarlet Heaven Sword more. He didn't expect that a bunch of messy things had happened recently, so it had been delayed. Today, it was even worse. The boy had turned into a girl. Where is that senior Shangguan? Shang Yusen went straight to the point. He's a weapon refining venerable. If he's willing to help, there might be some hope. Elder Ouyang slapped his head. How could I have forgotten about that? Although the matter was quite troublesome, they still had a ready-made big helper. However, when Elder Bo Yen and the others heard this, their expressions changed slightly. When they arrived, they also heard the dragon roar, as well as the low roar filled with threat and warning. It seems like some dragons have come to cause trouble for him. He shouldn't be in the academy now. Elder Bo Yen said solemnly. Shang Yusen and Elder Ouyang looked at each other. Obviously, they were still a little confused. Dragon race? What's going on? Dan Qing went to deal with it. We don't know what happened exactly. That person suppressed 9 dragons in the graveyard of the northern region of the primordial desolate land. If I'm not wrong, he should have a lot of enmity with the dragon clan. Elder Bo Yen guessed with some uncertainty. If it wasn't for the situation at 1,000 Wine Mountain, they would have followed him over. What's going on? Elder Ouyang crossed his hands. To be able to make the dragon clan chase after them with such fanfare, it definitely isn't a small matter. By the way, do you know which branch of the dragon clan it is? The few of them shook their heads. They didn't even go to take a look, so how would they know? The other party's pressure is extremely strong. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with. If that's the case, then I'm afraid he won't be back for a while. Shang Yusen looked at the spring eye. The layer of frost had started to appear from the edge, and a quarter of it had already frozen. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the spring eye was completely frozen. At that time, I'm afraid, during this period of time, we have been carefully watching over it. There are no abnormalities with the spring eye. How did so much of the heavenly lightning's power get stolen out of nowhere? Elder Ouyang really couldn't understand. Under normal circumstances, when something like this happened, they would definitely be aware of it. Elder Bo Yan suddenly thought of something and his expression changed. Hua Feng, when did Chu Yu, that red-tailed phoenix in Shangguanyu, break through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Elder Hua Feng pondered for a moment, then his eyes widened slightly. Could it be that you suspect, for the red-tailed phoenix to break through the shackles and become an ancient divine beast, it needs a lot of power? The Tianlei power accumulated in the spring eye is obviously the most suitable. But this doesn't mean that this matter has something to do with her, right? If it was really her red-tailed phoenix who did it, why didn't we notice it at all? The few of them fell silent. This was also what they were most puzzled about. Over the years, they had put in a lot of effort on Thousand Wine Mountain. They were basically clear about any fluctuations that occurred in the spring eye. However, they didn't know that the Tianlei power had been stolen. No matter what, call her over and ask her first. Elder Bo Yan instructed. Elder Hua Feng could only agree. Okay. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu had just returned to the Qingming Plaza when they saw Elder Hua Feng return. When he saw Elder Hua Feng heading straight for him, Chu Luiyue knew something was wrong. Elder Hua Feng waved at her. Bo Yan wants you to go. Chu Luiyue didn't ask any more questions. He took a deep breath and followed her. Seeing that Rong Xiu seemed to be planning to go with them, Elder Hua Feng originally wanted to stop them, but after thinking about it, he decided against it and quickly brought the two of them to the Thousand Wine Mountain. Only the people on the Qingming Square were left bewildered. In front of the Thousand Wine Mountain, Chu Luiyue glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw that there was a layer of frost on the mouth of the spring. From the serious looks on the elders' faces, she knew that they were in big trouble this time. Elder Bo Yan's gaze was sharp. He pointed at the spring and went straight to the point. Girl, does this matter have anything to do with you? At the same time, outside the academy's barrier, the two forces were in a stalemate. Inside the barrier was Shangguan Jing and a few elders of the academy. Outside the barrier was a tall man who looked to be in his 50s. Behind him stood a few young juniors. The man standing at the front was wearing a gray robe. His hair was white and his eyes were purplish gold. On his neck and hands, there were faint purplish gold scales the size of fingernails. Under the sunlight, they reflected a sparkling glow. He stared at Shangguan Jing coldly and sneered. Shangguan Jing, you're lucky. Hand over the corpses of my clansmen and I'll let you die in one piece. Digression. An excavator in his lower abdomen had shoveled away half a mountain. It had been in pain since dawn until now. He struggled to get up. 9 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1500. Hearing this, the expressions of the elders standing inside the barrier changed slightly. Who exactly was this person? He was so domineering. Shangguan Jing was a top-notch weapon refining supremacy in the Divine Ruins world. How could they be so rude? Elder Danqing had just arrived when he encountered this situation. He could not help but frown. Senior Shangguan. He flew to Shangguan Jing's side and quickly sized up the people outside the barrier. He was secretly shocked. From the looks of it, he was indeed from the Dragon Clan. However, why was the color of their scales a little off? He cupped his hands. I am Elder Danqing of Lingxiao College. May I know why you are here today? However, the old man opposite him only glanced at him before quickly retracting his gaze. His gaze was cold and indifferent, as if he was looking at an ant. It was obvious that he did not take Elder Danqing seriously at all. Elder Danqing's heart surged with anger. Although his status in the academy was not as high as Elder Bo Yan's, it was definitely not low. Even the people from the first-rate aristocratic families would be polite when they saw him. He had never seen such an arrogant person. He knew that the dragon race had always been arrogant, but this was too much. Everyone, you came rashly without informing us in advance. Moreover, you are so arrogant in front of Lingxiao College. Aren't you going a little overboard? Elder Danqing's face darkened. The old man finally glanced at Elder Danqing again. A trace of impatience appeared on his indifferent face. Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of questioning me here? You, Elder Danqing was about to retort when Shangguanjing stopped him. He smiled and said, "This is between us. Why implicate others?" When Elder Danqing heard this, he had a bad feeling. What kind of status did Shangguanjing have? Previously, in Fangzhou City, there were so many people present, but he did not show a good expression. However, now that the person who came was so domineering, there was no anger on his face. In fact, his tone was rather polite. The other party's identity was probably even more shocking than he had expected. "Shangguanjing, stop talking nonsense. This time, even if you were hiding in Lingshao College, it would be easy for me to take your life. If you have the guts, come out immediately and hide inside. Even if you don't feel cowardly, I feel ashamed for you." The person who came had a very bad temper and spoke very straightforwardly. His words were filled with anger. Shangguanjing didn't seem to be angry. Instead, he laughed. "Mao Yao, after so many years, your tone is still as arrogant as ever. Leave his corpse intact?" He had to have the ability to kill Shangguanjing first. Upon hearing this name, Elder Danqing was momentarily stunned. Why does this name sound so familiar? Suddenly, his heart shook. Her eyes suddenly widened as she looked at the man outside the barrier. Mao Yao? Wasn't that the one who was rather famous in the Great Void Phoenix Dragon race? It was rumored that 1,000 years ago, there was a family that had obtained a great phoenix dragon egg by chance. They secretly brought the dragon egg back and wanted to force a contract with it. Unfortunately, before he could take action, he was caught by the Great Phoenix Dragon. That time, the Great Phoenix Dragon had only sent 3 people. Mao Yao was one of them. Although it was only a second-rate family, its strength was at its peak at that time. There were even 2 god venerables holding down the fort. It was even stronger than some of the declining first-rate families and clans. If they could contract with that Great Phoenix Dragon egg, they might be able to reach a higher level. Unfortunately, they had lost this opportunity forever. Mao Yao and the other 2 only used a day and a night to slaughter their entire clan. After the news spread, the entire Divine Ruins world was shocked. As one of the 2 great ancient divine beasts, the Great Phoenix Dragon had always been filled with mystery in everyone's impression. Many people might not have the chance to see the Great Phoenix Dragon in their entire lives. As a result, the names of Mao Yao and the other 2 became the representatives of the Great Phoenix Dragon race from then on. Elder Danqing had never thought that he would actually be able to see this legendary figure. He had never thought that it would be under such circumstances. Why did Mao Yao suddenly come here and want to kill Shangguanjing? It seemed that there had been a long grudge between them. What was going on? Mao Yao sneered. "You're extremely cunning and sinister. Back then, you deceived everyone and escaped a calamity. Today, you won't have that chance anymore." He would definitely not make the same mistake twice. Shangguanjing spread his hands. "I know you want that corpse, but it's not in my hands now." "You're lying." Mao Yao did not believe his words at all. "Back then, you spent so much effort to hide that corpse. If it's not in your hands, where is it?" 8,000 years have passed. Shangguanjing suddenly raised his voice. "The world has changed. Things remain the same, but people have changed. Don't tell me you don't know what the primordial north region is like now. I've been in a deep sleep for 1,000 years. What happened? What did I lose? How did I control it? If you don't believe me, you can search me." As Shangguanjing spoke, he lifted his foot and was about to walk out. "Senior Shangguan." Elder Danqing hurriedly went forward and blocked his path. "This is a serious matter. You must think twice." The Great Void Phoenix Dragon clan had come aggressively. Who knew if they would attack Shangguanjing the moment he went out? This person was still in Lingshao College. How could anything happen to him? Mao Yao stared at Shangguanjing as if he wanted to see something from his face. However, both of them were old foxes. One hid his thoughts deeper than the other. No one could guess who was the other. "Shangguanjing, if you really have a clear conscience, come out directly. I have my ways to check if that corpse is on you. If that thing is really not with you, we'll forget about today's matter. But if we find out anything..." Don't blame us for being rude. Mao Yao could not be bothered to talk nonsense. At this moment, he did not rush forward, break the barrier, and drag Shengguan Jing over on account of Lingxiao College. No one knew how furious he was when he found out that Shengguan Jing was still alive. The next moment, Shengguan Jing said straightforwardly, "All right." Everyone present was shocked. Elder Danqing wanted to stop him again. "Senior Shengguan, they're here to look for me. It has nothing to do with Lingxiao College or you. You don't have to get involved in this," Shengguan Jing said with a smile. "Besides, I have a clear conscience. What's there to be afraid of?" As he spoke, he looked at the elder in charge of guarding the barrier. The two elders looked at each other and finally opened the barrier hesitantly. Shengguan Jing took a step forward. Both sides were in a stalemate. Shengguan Jing opened his arms. "If you want to investigate, just do it." Mao Yao sneered. "Let's see how long you can be stubborn." As he spoke, he closed his eyes and crossed his hands in front of him. Then, a purple gold light bloomed in his palm. A piece of purple gold translucent scale flew into the air. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1501. The scale armor slowly flew around Shengguan Jing's body, as if it was checking something bit by bit. Shengguan Jing could feel a subtle force sweeping across his body, but his expression remained the same. He put one hand behind his back and raised his chin slightly, calm and composed. The corpse was indeed not with him now, so of course, nothing could be found. Mao Yao looked at the scale armor that did not have any reaction and gradually frowned. Could it be that it really was not there? But back then, Shengguan Jing had formed a grudge with them because of that corpse. How could he bear to give up just like that? Finally, the scale armor flew around Shengguan Jing, but it still did not find anything. Shengguan Jing laughed. "How is it? Do you believe me now?" Mao Yao's brows were still tightly knitted, and his face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, cold to the bone. "Who knows what method you used to hide it?" This Shengguan Jing could even deceive them about his life and death. Hiding a corpse was not a small matter. The smile on Shengguan Jing's face faded a little. "Mao Yao, what happened back then was indeed my fault, but I sincerely apologize to all of you. It was you who refused to forgive me and wanted to take my life no matter what. I had no choice but to choose to escape. As for me faking my death to deceive you, may I ask, who doesn't want to live well in this world? I don't think I deserve to die, so of course, I won't let you bully me to death. Moreover, I have been sleeping for 1,000 years. I don't know anything. It's no different from being dead. Even if it's to forgive me, it's enough. Today, you came to kill me without any reason. I tolerated it and even agreed to let you search me. This is enough to show my sincerity, right? What else do you want?" His attitude had always been good before, but now he suddenly became tough, as if he had changed into a different person. The elders inside the barrier trembled with fear when they heard this. At this moment, he was still outside the barrier, only a short distance away from Mao Yao and the others. If they wanted to make a move, Shengguan Jing might not be able to escape successfully. At this moment, his words were sharp and even a little ear-piercing. The elders broke out in cold sweat for him. Mao Yao's expression changed as he stared at him for a long time. "You really don't know?" Shengguan Jing snorted. "It's up to you to believe it or not. I've already said what I wanted to say." After saying this, he actually turned around and went back. "Hey, you!" The young men behind him were a little dissatisfied when they saw this. Just as they were about to say something, they were stopped by Mao Yao. In the territory of Lingxiao College, they had to give him some face. It was not appropriate to kill him directly. He had said that he did not want to kill Shengguan Jing by killing Shengguan Jing. He could kill him at any time, but it was more important to find his corpse. Is by luck. He frowned as countless guesses flashed through his mind. With a thought, the piece of scale flew back to him. However, just as the scale armor was about to fall back into his palm, it suddenly changed direction and flew towards the direction of the Spirit Firmament Academy. "See." The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. The scales drew a straight purple gold line in the air. One of Shangguanjing's feet had already stepped back into the boundary. His muscles tensed up when he heard the noise. A strong sense of danger welled up in his heart. Without thinking, he quickened his pace and entered. "Seal the barrier!" He let out a deep shout. The two elders who were in charge of guarding the barrier were shocked when they heard that. They instinctively attacked. However, they were fast, but the scale was even faster. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown in. Shangguanjing immediately turned his head and saw a purple gold flash past his eyes. The next moment, that thing brushed past his cheek and flew in a certain direction in the academy. It was terrifyingly fast, causing Shangguanjing's face to feel a slight but clear cut. He looked in the direction that the thing was flying, and his heart skipped a beat. It was flying towards Thousand Wine Mountain. Senior Shangguan, this Elder Danqing, was also momentarily stunned. "Strengthen the barrier of the academy. Don't let them in." As Shangguanjing spoke, he had already disappeared from the spot. He chased after that piece of scale. Behind him, outside the barrier, Mao Yao had already reacted. He gritted his teeth. "It's really inside. Shangguanjing, just you wait." Thousand Wine Mountain. Facing Elder Bo Yan's questioning, Chu Liyue's hands in her sleeves quietly tightened. Previously, it was not that the elders did not suspect her. They had even called her to Thousand Wine Mountain to question her carefully. She had always denied it. Because there was no evidence and there were basically no major problems, most of the matters were left unsettled in the end. But it was different this time. Even though she didn't know what secrets were hidden in the spring, she could roughly guess from the current situation that this matter wasn't simple. Although the red-tailed red phoenix has the bloodline of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, it is almost 1 in 10,000 to successfully break through. As for yours, it completed its transformation in just a few months after entering the academy. Is this due to the power of Tianlei in the spring? Elder Bo Yan's question was very direct. Chu Liyue's heart wavered. Chi. Just as she spoke, a cold wind suddenly blew from behind. Danger. Her heart skipped a beat and she immediately dodged to the side. At the same time, Rong Xiu had already made his move. A golden barrier quickly appeared around Chu Liyue. However, in the next moment, a crack appeared on the barrier. Chu Liyue turned around in shock and saw a purple-gold translucent scale that was extremely sharp and embedded into the barrier set up by Rong Xiu. The scale was half the size of an adult's palm. The edges were extremely thin and sharp. It was wrapped in a turbulent aura. Chu Liyue was very familiar with that aura. This was the scale of the great phoenix dragon. The barrier shattered. The scale went straight for Chu Liyue's Danton. Digression. Everyone, have a good rest, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.